Charlamagne the God had a conversation with Dame Dash, and throughout the show, Dame Dash kept hitting on him pertaining to his masculinity. He indicated that Charlamagne was not a representation of masculinity. And not only that, but I guess his co-host he didn't consider. He said, y'all not a representation or good representation of masculinity. So I'm just curious, what exactly does masculinity looks like today? And was Charlamagne or actually Dame Dash out of order for calling out these men on the Breakfast Club in regards to their masculinity?
Yeah, well, all right. So Dame Dash said Charlamagne doesn't represent masculinity. I don't know who voted for Dame Dash as a spokesperson for masculinity. I don't know where the conference was. I don't know why they entrusted him with the tickets or any of that stuff. I don't know who made him the keynote speaker, right? Because here's the thing. It's always the people who aren't a thing that's going around telling everybody else they're the first ones to say who other people aren't, right? You don't see Elon Musk going around talking about who's not a billionaire, right? It's evident. He moves like a billionaire. He stands like a billionaire, right? So when he goes in the room, he doesn't go to all the poor people and go, you know what? You're not a billionaire. Because if you are a thing, it speaks for itself. When you got to tell somebody what you are, it's because you're not confident that it shows through on its own. So for while people see him standing there challenging Charlamagne's manhood, I see a man insecure in his own for the need that he need to poke at somebody else's. Dude, you couldn't stand on and represent it yourself. If your manhood was that, and I ain't got nothing against Dame Dash. I'm just saying with the conversation, the way it was approached. If your stance on manhood was that strong, you would have set a big enough contrast by your presence and by the way that you moved that the comparison and the contrast would have been clear. People would have been able to draw it for themselves. They wouldn't need you to draw them a map. Masculinity is it's not a checklist. It's not about who your boss was or how you got into your industry. It's not about who mentored you or who taught you the game of whatever you're going into or how flashy your money looks. Masculinity is about how you move, how you stand on your own 2 feet and you control your space in this world. That's masculinity. How you handle your responsibilities with integrity. That's masculinity. So when men police each other's masculinity, it just proves that we don't even agree on what it means. And I think the men who are questioning it are trying to find a definition they can live by, are trying to check their definition against other people to make sure, oh, yeah, well, I must be good because I'm more masculine than that guy. Yo, be your own competition. Be more masculine than you were yesterday, and then you can win. And it doesn't matter who else is not doing what. So instead of gatekeeping manhood, I'd like to see more people model it. Do that.
Yeah, I didn't get the masculinity conference either. Dame fumbled the ticket, so don't feel bad. I was left out too. Maybe I don't qualify. I'm not sure. I do think it's kind of weird to do. Like, you guys aren't a man, like challenging them to push-ups or, back in the day, if somebody challenged your manhood, we had to go have a duel. We do slap you with the gloves. There's a pap, and now we got to go do 10 paces and fight our way out of this. And you know what? Masculinity is really going to look different from man to man. I mean, it's going to, the way you express it, the way it kind of manifests itself. It's not for me. It's going to look different for you, for Nick. Of course, there are going to be some commonalities, but there is subtlety and nuance in the way you execute it, and that's okay. Just because you do it different the way I do it, or vice versa, doesn't mean it's wrong. You're not a real man because you didn't do it the way the Delvin way. I mean, who am I? I just do what works for me and hope for the best. I especially doing it on the radio. That's weird. Calling people, not one man out. Most of the time, most guys wouldn't say it to their face, and doing it in the radio station, that's kind of a safe environment because we know in most cases, you wouldn't do it in a club. You wouldn't do it in a bar. You wouldn't do it in a place where there wasn't security, where there's like a threat of actual physical testing of the masculinity. So I think doing it in a safe space is a little suspect too. And you questioning other people's manhood. I don't know if you're trying to do a vibe check. That's how it came across to me. But what you think, Nick? That's my 2 cents.
I mean, I don't know that people would question whether or not Dame Dash would throw hands with Charlamagne so he felt comfortable to talk his talk because he was in a radio station. That wouldn't be necessarily the angle that I would take, because I do think that Dame has an experience and history of being able to stand up, at least. Because I think that's one of the things that he was talking to Charlamagne about, right? He was like, you've ran it was a fight, people came at you, you ran. My masculinity says that I don't run, even if I got to take an ass whipping, right? So, I mean, Dame Dash for a very long time has stood on certain principles. And we'd be lying if we did not say that those might be old school principles and that there were a more harsh or certain definition of masculinity. A man didn't do this, a man didn't do that. Like that exists in the world that Dame grew up in and probably the world that we did too, right? Boys Don't Cry was the beginning of defining masculinity. So I get that nowadays we want to be super PC and act like, sure, anybody can represent masculinity a certain type of way. That's not true. There are certain men or people who are born males who are feminine as hell. Like they identify, they move like, they mimic, they take on the behaviors of, right? Specifically. And it's funny because I often wonder, like, who defined that? But somebody did for them to follow that, for them to define it for themselves and how they express themselves. So we want to pretend like this whole definition of masculinity isn't a thing. Now, yes, we can attack the messenger. We can say Dame is not qualified. I think the issue for him is that his credibility is certainly under fire. So it's fair, it's game to question Dame's credibility these days with all the announcement that he made and his financial situations. But one of the things, for example, he talked about was money. And he believes that men should move a certain type of way when it comes to money. So forget that he draws parallel to like his family office. And what he's really talking about is like complex ways that business people who are smart and brilliant organize their money to where they don't. So he had some good merit there, right? People just don't believe he's being for real, right? So it's funny because he might be giving you great information, but we're paying attention to the messenger. So maybe it gets lost on us whether or not, despite his foolery, that he's actually giving you gems that he might be applying himself, but you don't know. Right. So I get that Dame's credibility is shot right now, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't understand where he was coming from. I'd be lying if I said that, going back to the money piece, for example, can you be a man without taking care of yourself financially? Right. Some people might draw that line at saying, oh, okay, well, you're barely getting by. Okay, at least you're getting by. If you're $1 up, you're a man. Is that right? Right? Is that taking care of yourself? Are you taking care of your future? Or do you have enough? Right? Then you start to get with somebody, maybe you get married. Now you got the responsibility to them. Like, where do you draw masculinity and manhood? Because most men, to most men, if you're not making enough money to take care of your family, you might not feel like a man. Right? So there are certain hard and fast things that I think we still believe in when it comes to what masculinity looks like. I think Dame was trying to define it in terms of how men move.